Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will discuss about the CSF, that is the cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid, also known as liquor cerebrospinalis, it is a clear colorless fluid that surrounds and permeates the CNS. It offers support, protection and nourishment to the brain. In essence, the brain floats in it. CSF is a clear fluid which is present in the ventricles of the brain and the central canal of the spinal cord, and also the subarachnoid spaces. Subarachnoid space is the space between the arachnoid and the pia mater. So we have three meninges in our nervous system. That is, outermost is dura mater, then arachnoid, and then pia mater. So in between these two, that is arachnoid and pia mater, the space is known as subarachnoid space, that is containing your CSF. So CSF is produced in the brain by modified ependymal cells in the choroid plexus, approximately 50 to 70%, and the remainder is formed around the blood vessels and along the ventricular walls. So here we can see how the CSF is forming from the blood through the ependymal cells. Through ultrafiltration, the blood forms the CSF, and the cells which are helpful for this, these are the cells of the choroid plexus, that is the ependymal cells. Now, what are the functions of CSF? It protects, lubricates the brain, it provides nutrients, removes the waste. In adults, it is approximately 90 to 150 ml, and in newborn, its volume is 10 to 60 ml. It serves as a transport medium for nutrients and metabolites, endocrine substances, and even neurotransmitters. So, in the nutshell, we can say the functions of CSF. The protection. The CSF protects the brain from damage by buffering the brain. In other words, we can say the CSF acts to cushion a blow on to the head and lessen the impact. Then second point is buoyancy. Because the brain is immersed in fluid, the net weight of the brain is reduced from 1400 gram to about 50 grams. Therefore, the pressure at the base of the brain is reduced. This is another function of the CSF. Then the third function is excretion of waste products. The one-way flow from the CSF to the blood takes potentially harmful metabolites, drugs and other substances away from the brain. So this blue space in the diagram is showing you the flow of the CSF, and the arrows are representing the CSF. Now the location of CSF. The CSF is found in the two lateral ventricles, third ventricle, fourth ventricles, spinal cord. In the spinal cord, we have the central canal which is containing the CSF, then in subarachnoid space, and it also continues with the extracellular fluid of the brain parenchyma. The CSF flows through the subarachnoid space between the arachnoid and the pia mater, and about 20 ml of fluid produces every hour in the choroid plexus and reabsorbed by arachnoid villi. Now this formation of CSF, choroid plexus of lateral, third and fourth ventricles, then ependymal lining of the ventricular systems, and pia-glial membrane, blood vessels. Cells are believed to actively secrete sodium ions into the ventricular system in exchange for potassium ions. Sodium ions electrically attract chloride ions and osmotically draw water from the blood vascular system to constitute the CSF. So here how the formation occurs. So in this diagram we can see the choroid plexus and the ventricles which are forming the CSF. Now how circulation of CSF occurs. From lateral ventricle it is formed, and then it is passed through the interventricular foramen of Monro into the third ventricle. Then from here it passes through the mesencephalic aqueduct, or we can say aqueduct of Sylvius, and then enters into the fourth ventricle and then into the spinal cord in the central canal. Also out the lateral apertures to the subarachnoid spaces to the venous system. So the lateral apertures will lead the CSF into the subarachnoid spaces, and then this returned back again into the venous system. So there is foramen of Magendie, the median aperture, and foramen of Lashka, the lateral apertures, which circulates the blood, the CSF, through the subarachnoid spaces, and due to the pulsation of blood in the choroid plexus, the CSF moves, and due to pulsation of ependymal cells, the CSF again flows. So here we have discussed how the CSF is flowing. From lateral ventricle it is transferred to the third ventricle, and then to the fourth ventricle, and then to the spinal cord central canal. Now the site of formation of the CSF is the choroid plexus of the lateral ventricle. Then here also we have discussed about the circulation of CSF in the subarachnoid space. The arrows are indicating the circulation. Here again we have discussed the circulation of CSF. Now absorption of CSF. Through the arachnoid villi, a protrusion of arachnoid membrane into the central venous sinus and other sinuses, and absorption also occurs by veins and capillaries of the CNS. So in this diagram we can see the arachnoid granulations and arachnoid villi, which are responsible for the absorption of CSF and transfer it to the venous system. Now the normal physical characteristic features of CSF are: the appearance is clear and colorless normally, volume is 130 ml, and rate of production is 0.5 ml per minute, and the pressure is 60 to 150 millimeter of water. The composition includes the protein, which is 15 to 45 milligram per 100 ml, glucose is 50 to 85 milligram per 100 ml, and the chloride ions are from 720 to 750 milligram per 100 ml. The number of cells found in the CSF is 0 to 3 lymphocytes per cubic millimeter. Now the CSF glucose. The glucose enters the CSF by selective transport across the blood-brain barrier, and the normal value for this is 60 to 70% of that plasma glucose. The diagnostic significance shows if there is low CSF glucose. This can be considerably diagnostic value in determining the causative agents in the meningitis. So clinical significance of the elevated protein values in the CSF. If elevated total protein values are most frequently seen in pathologic conditions, the elevated CSF protein is due to damage to the blood-brain barrier. So if there is pathologic conditions, the normal values of the protein will be high. Now the blood-brain barrier, what is this? It is a physiological barrier to flow of substances from blood to the brain tissue. The blood-brain barrier functions to preserve a stable environment for the neurons in the CNS. So in this diagram we have seen the astrocytes of the nervous system, that is the neuroglial cells. They are having some food process. These food process are forming a barrier between the blood and the nervous system. So this is the blood-brain barrier. So blood capillary, it has the tight junctions and it is surrounded by the astrocyte, as in seen in the diagram. This is the blood capillary and it is surrounded by the astrocyte, the food process of the astrocytes, and it is a carrier mediated transport of glucose and amino acid through this junction. The blood-brain barrier has the lipid soluble molecules will easily across through this, and high CO2 and low oxygen level produce vasodilatation and decrease resistance of blood-brain barrier. If there is injury or inflammation, it decreases the resistance of blood-brain barrier, that is, it allows some antibiotics to be used for the treatment. So substances which can pass through the blood CSF barrier are oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, glucose, amino acids, electrolytes, drugs such as L-Dopa, 5-hydroxy, tryptamine, sulfonamides, tetracycline, and other lipid soluble drugs. Anesthetic gases like ether, nitrous oxide, which are lipid soluble, they can also pass. Other lipid soluble substances can also pass. So substances which cannot pass through the blood CSF barrier are injurious chemical agents, pathogens such as bacteria, drugs such as penicillin and catecholamines. Dopamine also can't pass. Therefore, Parkinson's disease, it is treated with L-Dopa instead of dopamine. Bile pigments, they are also does not pass through this. However, barrier is not well developed in infants, so bile pigments enter the brain tissue, and during jaundice in infants, the bile pigments enter the brain and causes the damage of basal ganglia, which leads to kernicterus. Then there is a term known as circumventricular organs. What are these? These are selected brain areas which are not protected by the blood-brain barrier. These are located in the brain, but they are not surrounded. They are not protected by blood-brain barrier, and these are located on the boundaries of third and the fourth ventricle. These are parts of hypothalamus like median eminence, neurohypophysis, pineal gland, area postrema, and subfornical organs. These organs are included in the CVO, that is circumventricular organs. So these are highlighted in this diagram. This diagram is taken from the F. Netter, which is a very good clinical anatomical book, and this is showing the areas which are known as circumventricular organs. Then CSF disorders include hydrocephalus. In this, there is abnormal accumulation of the CSF in the skull, and which leads to enlargement of the head. There are two kinds of hydrocephalus: non-communicating and communicating. In non-communicating hydrocephalus, also known as internal hydrocephalus, it is due to obstruction of any of the foramen through which CSF escapes, and it results in the dilatation of the ventricular cavity. And in the communicating hydrocephalus, or we can say the external hydrocephalus, it occurs due to blockage of arachnoid villi. So in this, absorption of CSF is not possible. Now the symptoms of the hydrocephalus include the headache, vomiting, atrophy of brain, mental weakness, and convulsions. So this is the image showing you the condition of the hydrocephalus. See the bulky brain, the bulky ventricular cavities. So in this CT scan also we can see the dilated ventricles in case of hydrocephalus. Then the next applied is the lumbar puncture. A lumbar puncture, also known as spinal tap, or in the short form we can say the LP. It is a diagnostic procedure that is performed in order to collect a sample of the CSF for biochemical, microbiological, and cytological analysis. So in this position we can do the lumbar puncture. It is done in the intervertebral space between L3 and L4, and the needle is passed in the direction upward, and the patient is held in this flexed position, completely flexed thigh and the knee, and the needle is passed in the intervertebral disc between L3 and L4. So this is the lumbar puncture where we have collected the CSF. And the termination of the spinal cord occurs at the level of L1. So the needle is inserted at the level of L3, L4. So this is the proper angle at which the needle is passed. The needle is directed upwards. So in this condition the patient is laid down. It is in full flexed hip and the knee positions, and it is the level of entry of the needle, that is L3, L4 interspace at the level of iliac crest. And this is the spinal needle which is used for the lumbar puncture. And this is how the CSF comes out through this spinal needle and collected in a vial. Then the appearance of the CSF, it is clear and colorless, then it is normal. If it is bright red, this indicates the presence of blood, and the appearance of fresh blood in all the three tubes supports the diagnosis of subarachnoid hemorrhage. If it is xanthochromic, means if it is yellow, it indicates that the patient is suffering from jaundice. If it is yellow, it also suggests that there is a subarachnoid hemorrhage which recently occurred. If it is turbid, it indicates the presence of white cells and is suggestive of CNS infection. Now the cell counts indicates if there is increased neutrophils, this indicates a bacterial meningitis or cerebral abscess. If there is increased lymphocytes in the CSF, this indicates the viral meningitis, tuberculosis, syphilis, fungal and parasitic infections. Now the questions which can be asked in exams related to this topic are: First question is write in detail about the formation and circulation of CSF. So we have to mention all the points which we have discussed earlier in this class, that is about the formation, how it is forming, how it is circulating in the ventricles, and how it is absorbed. Then second question is the write the properties of CSF. So in this we will discuss about the physical properties, the chemical components of the CSF with their normal values. So this completes our topic. Thank you so much for watching.